Hello friends, welcome to my channel Q Analysis, and I welcome you to my today's webinar on exploratory testing. Myself, I am Prashant Kumar, and in next slide, I'll talk something about myself. So here I am. Most of you who know me via LinkedIn or who have worked with me, they are familiar that I have been working in the field of IT since last 12 plus years. I'm a QA evangelist and a software testing enthusiast. I have a computer engineering degree along with a PG in management, PG specialization in management from Howard University and ICMS Sydney. Since last 12 years, I have been working I started my career as a Java developer and then moved to business analyst. Then I moved into testing field, started working as a test consultant, mostly in the field of automation testing. And then since last few years, I have been working as a quality head at major IT firms, investment banks, and startups across USA, UK, Switzerland, Germany, and India. Feel free to connect with me. You can connect with me via LinkedIn or any of the social sites. I'm present everywhere. If in case you have any QA related query, suggestion, or if you need my mentoring or consulting advices. So here we go, friends. Let's start with today's presentation. What is the agenda of today's presentation? Today, we are going to cover following 6 points in our presentation, which is what is exploratory testing, how to master the art of exploratory testing, why to practice exploratory testing, practical implementations of exploratory testing, myths versus reality about exploratory testing, and last but not the least, you can always chat me your question and I'll try to answer them. And we can have a question answer session via chat, or maybe you can connect me on LinkedIn or any social site and I can answer your questions. So friends, let's go and start this presentation. Let's talk about the awards first. If there was a gold medal in Olympics for failing, or else if there was a World Cup for that which fails the most, do you know who would have won it? Who was the winner? Who would have stood the winner? Any idea, friends? Okay, I'll give you the answer. And the award goes to software. Yes, software is one of those things which fail more unexpectedly than anything else and more often than anything else. A software is something which is in any kind of environment or any kind of user who is using it, or maybe in any kind of situation may end up into a failure. You cannot ensure. Means we try to maintain the quality, developers, testers, and everybody, we try to maintain the quality. Still, there are many times where there is something or the other which is causing a problem with the software, and for user that is the issue. The latest example is Facebook, right? There was a data leak. So for user, that is a bug, that is the issue. The data leaks which happened from Facebook, it happened because somebody was not testing it properly, or the developers while developing, they never thought of that scenario, which was harnessed by some foreign attackers and they could steal the data. Hence, for user, that is the issue or a bug, and that is a failure. Who ensures quality? Now you can see this diagram, which clearly most of you might have seen it many times. If not, please feel free to see it. And you can see there are two bears sitting there or two rats sitting there. One of them is developer, the other one is tester. Developer is saying, how can I make it? And the tester is arguing, how can I break it? Yes, they both want, the ultimate goal for both of them is same, but they have a different path to achieve the same goal. They are not very much different in achieving their goal or their target or whatever is their target. Only the way or the approach what they are using might be different. And this is what which happens in day-to-day basis, and this is what we see. So as per me, quality is something which is a team responsibility and not an individual's responsibility. So no, testers alone are not responsible. Everyone in a team should and must care about quality, and they're responsible for maintaining a high quality so that the user should get a high quality product or service. So for me, quality is a team responsibility. Moving on to our next slide. Quality and speed versus quality or speed. Now, you must have heard of a technical term, continuous integration, right? In this presentation, I'm not going to talk about continuous integration. I'll take a separate presentation if you wish. But with continuous integration coming into picture, development has turned out to be continuous. Like now, development is taking place on a very fast pace and on continuous pace. And to meet up continuous development, we have to test continuously. And for the same reason, we have continuous testing in place. Now, testing continuously means testing with every commit, testing with automation, testing each build, testing the functionality as fast as possible, and reporting bugs as soon as possible. These are the basic things, these are the basic principles of continuous testing. So every time when there is a commit, there should be a test which should be executed to check whether commit is breaking anything or it is working fine. And then testing with automation. Everything which was working earlier should work now, and it can be tested using automation. Each and every build, as soon as it is tested, then and there, it should be verified, maybe by smoke testing or a quick checking, it should be verified that the build is working okay, build is green, and it can be tested. Testing the functionality, whatever functionality that has been implemented, that has been coded, it should be tested on a fast go, and then the bug should be reported. Now, with this continuous development process, developers or the product owners, they don't have that much of time to wait for the bug. In traditional process, it used to be like a stepwise, the waterfall approach. One thing when planning is over, when estimation is over, then planning is done. When planning is done, test environment setting is done. When test environment setting is done, then execution starts, and then defect logging, and then again the next cycle. This used to happen earlier, but with continuous integration coming in place and agile environment and Kanban, all these things coming into place, we have to test on a very continuous basis. So, friends, here it is the example of continuous integration, continuous testing, and with continuous integration, continuous testing, both of them along with development will ensure continuous delivery. So, here you see this diagram, which is in which we have an emphasis on test. So first of all, we start with a negative test case, or we start with a test case. Since there is no functionality, all these tests will be failing. Then we prepare something, we build something, again, we push them to test. Once the test cases are passing, they are sent to release and deploy. The code is deployed and the release build is created. Basic DevOps related thing is taken care of by the DevOps guy, and then they operate on the certain environment and parameters, and then they monitor whether all the specifications are covered and the build looks okay. Once it is fine, it is given back to the testing team. They plan, they test. Depending on the test, they provide issues. Issues are then again coded, and code is refactored, changed, or modified. Issues resolved. A new build is created, and again sent to testing. In this way, this is a continuous way of testing. This is done with developers, DevOps, and testers all working together. Now we talk about the continuous testing. In continuous testing, we have this testing thing taking place. This testing can be functional testing, performance testing, automation testing, manual testing, any kind of testing. As a part of testing, test reports are created or defects are reported to development team. Development team go ahead and they provide a kind of fix. They make code changes. They commit to the source code. As soon as they commit to the source code, it initiates a CI, continuous integration process, the same one what we saw over here. And then a build is created. This build is again tested. And if at all we have any issue, that is reported back again. So in this way, it is a continuous process of testing. Every time when there is a code integration, so in simple word, every time when there is a code integration, it is tested, and after testing, the feedback is provided, and if everything looks good, it is delivered. So this is the way of continuous delivery. Now, with this continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous testing, there are certain kind of challenges arising for testers. So let's talk about those challenges. To find the bugs or defects as soon as possible. This is the first bug. Second, to find more and more bugs, more and more and more bugs possible, to check the quality in minimum time, to sign off with maximum test coverage, and to sum up, a tester is expected to learn, plan, and test in the fastest and most efficient manner. So going back to our main question, which I asked, speed versus quality, speed and quality, speed or quality. So if you see this slide, you'll figure out the answer to that question. For a tester, speed and quality, they both are very important. Now we cannot say that we are performing testing a high quality testing and it has to be slow. You can't say that. If developers are developing fast, we also have to, we as a tester, we have to test it on a faster way, on a faster pace, and provide the feedback as soon as possible. We have to find the bugs and defects. We have to break the codes as soon as possible. I believe testing is the main thing, and testing can be done via automation testing or manual testing. These are the different techniques or different methods of testing, different ways of testing. So if developers are developing on a faster pace, testers have to match the pace as well. Now there lies the additional burden or additional responsibility with testers that they have to ensure quality. Yes. Now testing with quality is a very important factor for testers. You have to ensure, as a tester, you have to ensure that the quality of deliverable which you are going to sign off, it is of high quality. If at all we have an issue, we have to report it on a faster, and we are covering as much as possible and reporting more and more and more bugs. So how can this be done? This can be done if only a tester is learning, planning, and testing at the same time. Then only he can perform in the fastest and most efficient manner. So with this, we come to this slide where this pretty lady, she is having a thought that is, okay, I got the problem. Still, what is exploratory testing and why we need it? Okay, this sounds very genuine. Most of the users who are watching this webinar, they might be having this question, what is exploratory testing and why we need it? Let's try to figure out the answer to this question. Why we need exploratory testing? We just answered this question in our previous slides. A tester is expected to learn, plan, and test in fastest and most efficient manner. We need quality and speed at the same time, and not just quality or speed. Real-world business users don't behave like traditional or scripted or expected manner. Like in real-world scenarios, most of the bugs or issues which you find, they are done by, they are user issues, and those user issues will happen because if a user is doing something which is unexpected, you cannot predict it. It is something which is very untraditional. You cannot script it using automation. Trust me, most of the time when you do, like even I was automating software test cases, and in past, even I have seen it is just a way of checking things and see if everything is working fine or not. But that doesn't ensure that anything will break or not. Any new functionality can have certain implications. Any old functionality, when modified or altered, can have certain implications. So there are so many things. There are n number of permutation and combinations. You cannot cover all of them. Depending upon the time and the effort and person and budget who are testing it, we can cover only a certain limit or certain scenarios. So in real world business, scenario, the business users don't behave in a traditional manner, and your scripted or expected behavior or expected manner, the way they figure out issues is very ad hoc, unstructured, and unsystematic. To cover this kind of scenarios, to cover such kind of issues, to reveal such kind of issues, you have to test on the same lines. You have to think in an ad hoc, unstructured, and unsystematic manner like a user, and that kind of testing is known as exploratory testing. What is exploratory testing? So with this, we move to our next question. What is exploratory testing? Exploratory testing is just a kind of software testing, let's say a verification validation method or technique wherein we learn about the software simultaneously at the same time. We design the test cases and execute those test cases. We gather the feedback, those using those feedback from the last session or the last test session, we inform the next session, and based upon the test charters, a track is kept for the exploratory test sessions findings. So simultaneously learning, designing, executing, using the feedback, and then keeping track of time, the testing which is performed, that is known as exploratory testing. How to master in exploratory testing. Okay, moving on to the next slide. In this slide, we'll talk about the different activities which a tester has to perform if they want to master the art of exploratory testing. The first three things which are very important for a tester to understand, that is exploratory testing is based upon only three things. First, learning, designing, and testing, and doing all of them together. So, whenever we say learning, it includes making up of strategy design, learning, designing, and testing means learning about the software, what should be your test approach, what kind of scenarios you are going to perform, any kind of modeling structures, decision making, configuration, what kind of operation you're going to perform, and then while you are doing the testing, the observation, what you are getting, evaluating those observations, and then giving them to your feedback. And depending upon the feedback, performing these three things again: learning, designing, and testing. Learning of the scenario, learning of the software, learning about the software, designing the test cases, and then executing those test cases. And once you have executed in a given time charter and session-based testing, I'll explain more about charter and session in my upcoming slides. So you have to come up with these three things based upon strategy, modeling, decision-making, configuration, operation, observation, and evaluation. And then you say whether your test cases are passing or failing, or whether it is okay to sign off, or it is okay to go ahead or stop and do a second round of testing. We'll talk about more techniques in my upcoming slides. Let's move on to the next one. Exploratory testing. What are the practical implementations for exploratory testing? Now, in the real world, you see something like this. You assume they are reasonable people who will do reasonable things. But do you think that is actually the real world? No, not at all. The real-time users, you can't guarantee they are the reasonable users. They are not somebody who are like a developer, tester, or IT person and don't know everything. There is the scenario. Like, for example, I give you an example. I saw there was a bug reported by a guy sometime back to an airline system, and the airline system was saying, I I do the booking, I select my seat, and then once I'm done with my seat selection, I'm I'm trying to change my seat. I'm unable to do so because all seats are full. But even if I'm upgrading, I cannot change my seat. Why? Now he is a user and he is seeing a right kind of situation, right? He's talking about a right kind of situation. If you're trying to upgrade a user from economy to business class, you should allow him to select a seat from economy, you can select a seat in business class, you can do that. But then the user was not allowed to do so. Seat was auto allocated to him. So this is something, it can be a business related issue, it can be a user issue. These things are something which are very common, and you'll get to know when users actually start using the software or you start using the system. So real world users are not reasonable, are not something who are very structured, or not somebody who are supposed to do or behave as per your user manuals. They are not, and they won't. The second practical implementation is two sides of testing. You can see there are two sides of testing. One is checking, that is verification and validation part. The other is exploring part. So we can say a software is tested once we have everything in place, like we have verified and validated all results and scenarios, everything is covered, and then coverage is okay, and we have nothing open, no critical issues open, everything is working fine, we have received the sign off, and then we'll say, fine, the software looks okay and can be released in the production. But in case of exploratory testing, you go ahead and explore. It's just like exploring. For example, you can see this hat. It's a tourist hat. So you have a hat and you're in a garden or you're in a safari or you're in a market. You go ahead and explore. You look around and you see everything. You try to explore. Exactly. That is what you do as a part of exploratory testing. You're just like a tourist. Like a tourist, if you go to a new place, let's say you go to India, you go to Europe, or you go to any America, you go to any city, any place, and you don't know about it. You have little idea, maybe through online some documentations, or you read, or you have some images. You go there, actually you land up there, and then you raise your head, you start. You're wearing cap, you raise your head, and you go for a ride, and you start watching everything, and you start making your notes at the same time. You're looking into things and making your experience richer and richer. Exactly. That is what we do as a part of exploratory testing. With this, we come to our next slide, which talks about the practical implementation of exploratory testing. Exploratory testing, we focus on charters and sessions. Yes, any testing, if it is not a time-bounded testing or if you don't have any limits attached to it, it is of no use. You can keep on, it will become endless. You can keep on working on those testing forever, which is, I don't think that is something what we are looking for. We have to come up, the main focus, as I already mentioned, is about maintaining the quality and speed at the same time. So focus with charters. And when I say charter, it is something like this. Explore the area of feature with resources, conditions, dependencies, etc. to discover the information. This is known as your charter. And then this charter you can do this charter related activity in certain sessions. For example, I give you the second example. This one is structured with time box sessions. Let's say we have a charter like explore login in combination with bookmarks and history to discover the information about interactions. Now, this is a browser wherein you have a combination of login and bookmarks, history to discover the information about the user interactions. This can be done into certain sessions. This is my charter, and this charter has to be tested in exploratory testing, and you do it in 1, 2, 3 sessions, and you figure out, okay, looks okay, I'll go ahead and check the history, I'll check the bookmark, I'll check the login features, and see the different kind of interactions. There are certain techniques which user can use it, like they can use mind map, they can use flow diagrams, they can use different kind of heuristics, they can use analytical approach. So there are so many things which you can use, but the idea remains same. You have to test fast and you have to maintain the quality, and it's all about exploring. With this, we come on to our next slide, which talks about myths versus reality. Yes, friends. There are so many myths in market when we talk about exploratory testing, which is totally different from the reality. People, they don't understand. If you talk to people, most of the people, they have a general concept about exploratory testing. It is ad hoc. It requires no planning, no documentation, or maybe people, exploratory testing is non-measurable. You cannot measure it. It is so fast. How can you measure it? Maybe I often hear exploratory testing is only meant for agile teams. It's like people who follow agile and Kanban. For them, it is meant. It is not for traditional approach. It is not for other testing teams. Or maybe exploratory testing replaces the functional testing. With exploratory testing, you have no need to do well logged, and there should be certain kind of like if you want, you can have a mind map and you can have an approach or a flow diagram, which has no test cases, but it has the approach what you use for such kind of testing. You can get some ideas about uh, exploratory testing from testing tools from James Whitaker, or session-based testing from James Bach, or you can invent your own idea since it is exploration. Now, every person could be exploring depending upon his technical skills, his mindset, and his approach. So you can have your own method or approach for exploratory testing. As long as you're finding bugs and you're finding it fast, I'll still consider it as exploratory testing. It's up to you. You have to be very innovative. Yes, friends. You have to gain the knowledge, you have to be experienced, and then at the same time, you have to be innovative. You have to come up with new ideas. Things are changing, development methodologies are changing. Testing, the way it is now and the way it was 10 years back, trust me, since last 12 years, I'm in this market and I have seen that the way testing was being done 10 years or 12 years back and the testing is done now has totally changed. And in coming days, it is going to change more and more. So you have to prove your importance to the market. You have to prove your importance to the development team, to the IT team, and to the recruiters. And how can you do that? Fine, I can find you more and more bugs in quicker way in a shorter span of time. And here is where exploratory testing comes into place. The second myth: exploratory testing cannot be measured. Yes, many of the folks they feel that exploratory testing or testing done by exploratory methods cannot be measured, which is completely wrong. You can have multiple measurement techniques such as SBTM. SBTM is session-based test management. Like in one session, what you have done, you have just a note of it, and you know, okay, you spent near about 30 minutes in testing this functionality or a charter as per the description, and these were the few scenarios you did, and how many bugs you detected, or how many high-level scenarios have you covered, defect versus user story complexity, what was the complexity and how much you have covered, depending on the complexity. These are the things which you can measure. You have to be very creative. Again and again, I am saying it, you have to be very much creative. It doesn't mean that you don't be fooled by matrix. I don't advocate use of Excel's matrix, proper test cases, documentation, and doing things. It is no more required. Trust me, things have changed. There's so many things which are taken care by automation testing. So if you're a functional tester, a manual tester, or somebody who is testing a software or a application, you have to act in a very creative and innovative way and figure out or find out those bugs which automation or software automation cannot figure, which software automation cannot figure out, or software automation is a little complex, it takes a little bit of time and it's not very adaptive. We are still to implement artificial intelligence. So I see this as an opportunity. Being a manual tester or being a functional tester, you have an opportunity over here, you have an added edge. You can go ahead and figure out those business related scenarios, those critical scenarios, those functionality issues which automation cannot discover, and you can go ahead and figure out those issues. For that, you have to be very creative and innovative. That's the only requirement for being a successful tester right now at this very moment. Okay, friends? So yes, we can measure it. We can measure the exploratory testing, and don't be fooled by the matrix. We don't have to maintain any kind of matrix. We don't have that much of time. The third myth is exploratory testing is only for agile teams. Many of the people, they have this concept in their mind that ET or exploratory testing techniques are being used only for agile teams. No, it's a completely wrong concept. It's a completely myth. Tell me one thing. If you are in a traditional testing team, or you're in an agile team, you're a Kanban, you're into any kind of team which is ensuring quality, Don't you think you should empower your team by allowing creativity? Don't you trust your team? And aren't you looking for new innovative ways to test? If your answer is yes, then you should go for exploratory testing. You should go ahead. You should go ahead and perform exploratory testing because it is based upon inspecting and adapting. It is all about doing the same thing again and again with and covering different kind of scenarios in a session or time-based session just to figure out different kind of results, different kind of scenarios to cover, and looking for new ways to test. So agile testing or maybe any form of testing, they are not a specific one to use exploratory testing. Exploratory testing is a technique which is well and good and can be applied, or it is very much applicable to any form of testing teams. So please go ahead and use it. It is very, very important to figure out bugs in a very fast and quick manner and maintain a high quality, figure out high quality bugs in a very short span of time. If you want to do so, I'll advocate exploratory testing. And with this, we come to the last myth, which talks about exploratory testing replacing the functional testing. Now, many people, they say, I have heard few folks saying, we do exploratory testing. Don't you think exploratory testing is going to replace the manual testing or the functional testing? My answer is no. When we say testing and we mark as tested, yes. So it is either a yes or no. It is like a go or no-go situation. So when you say tested or checked, verification validation is done, everything is working fine as it is expected to work, and everything looks okay, we can go ahead and release it. But then at the same time, you can explore it. You don't have to do all those things, all those testing. You don't have to go for the system integration, regression, and all automation, all kind of testing, and to figure out, come to a conclusion whether it is working fine or not. When you're doing a functional testing, it is a totally different thing. But let's say exploratory testing is small portion, a small subset of functional testing, wherein you go ahead and on a very fast basis, where you learn, plan, and execute. You design test cases at the same time. You learn about the environment. You learn about the software, and you execute the test at the same time. And you share your findings so that a better software can be made. And next iteration, you do the same thing, and you keep on doing everything in a charted session, and that is known as exploratory testing. So exploratory testing is not replacing the functional testing. It is just a subset. Yes, my friend, it is a subset of functional testing. With this, we come to the end of our presentation. And if you have any question, feel free to chat or feel free to post a question to my LinkedIn wall. I'll be more than happy to answer your queries. And this is my LinkedIn profile. You can get the details about it in the description of the video. After I'm done with the session, I'll post the video at YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel, Q Analysis, and a blog with the same name, Q Analysis. You'll figure out both the channel, LinkedIn link, LinkedIn URL, channel URL, and blog URL in the description of the video. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you have liked my